Hey guys, it is Nick here, and today we are getting into part 10 of this awesome remake to What If Rick Spared Shane. Now, spoiler alert, Shane will not be the main focus of today's episode. He'll be mentioned sometime at the end for clarity and where he's been, but if you guys watched the last episode, Shane has officially been kicked from the group after Pete killed Father Gabriel. And now, he's off with a bit of suspense after he looked at the group menacingly to wonder where he is. But anyways, I will mention him towards the end. For now, let's focus on Alexandria into the start of Season 6. Ron is not going to hate Rick this time, but he's going to hate Daryl. Why? Because Daryl is the one who killed Pete this time, because the meeting and everything else was under different circumstances. So, it's going to be a lot different this time, if you guys could not already tell. However, I don't see Ron being learned how to use the crossbow, or even the crossbow being relevant to Ron's character. It just doesn't feel right. So, Ron is going to receive normal gun training like he did with Rick. Just because I feel like that's the most logical thing to give him. Now, who's going to teach him because of what's happened with Daryl? Well, Merle's still around, so Merle is going to be the one to teach Ron about the gun training. Why? Because I feel that to make up more for what Merle caused with Beth's death and everything with the Claimers, this would be a great way to keep him on Daryl's side, even though Daryl said that he forgives him and it's all good. I feel that Merle would always carry that, just in this story. So, when asked, Merle takes up the offer of training Ron with gun training as an extra way to keep himself loyal to Daryl and as an extra added bonus of apology as to what happened with Beth, because I just feel like a more apologetic Merle in this story would make sense. Daryl, not really caring too much, just says, okay, and just walks off. Not that he's still mad at Merle, it's just, whatever, okay. And here's a big thing, a major problem that the group's going to have. Because of Reg not dying against Pete, and it was Father Gabriel, that means that Deanna still holds control over the group. And so they're not going to go out to that whole quarry line where the Horde is and try and diverge them. So there's no one to know that that Horde is a problem. There's speculation, but before the group can actually figure out anything as to what's happening outside the walls, something does. The wolves make their attack, with the truck crashing into Alexandria and the clock tower falling, letting out any zombies that are in the area, but the Horde is still back by the quarry line. But nobody has time to focus on anything related to that because the wolves have officially made their attack, unbeknownst to anyone. Because remember, everybody is at Alexandria right now because no one's out doing their thing. And here's something I want to mention. In all my other stories, Andrea has died at this point against the wolves. But this time, spoiler alert, this is a much different Andrea that we're dealing with here. How? Because, for one thing, Michonne's here, and they're good friends, and for another, even though Shane is gone and has proven that he can't be trusted at this point in time after so long, I feel that even though they're not together, Andrea would still, she would want to make sure that Shane is safe out there and want to find him, and still feel there's a way back to get him back in the group. So, whenever the wolves do make their attack, Andrea fights on and makes absolute sure she survives. Because if there's any shape or way that they can find Shane one day and make up like they did before, she's going to be one of the people to greet him on that very day. So she survives, but that doesn't mean that people don't die. Among a few other Alexandria members that we saw die in the original story, some of the main group dies as well. Reg, Deanna's husband, dies here. Nicholas, Herschel, sadly, Big Tiny, and Oscar. I gave the prisoners a chance to shine, but I feel that at least for Big Tiny and Oscar, this is a good place to put their death sequences. Meanwhile, in another part of Alexandria, Morgan has his whole spiel and trying to convince the wolves to leave and all that. And whenever he goes off to one of the houses, he gets attacked by Owen and kidnaps him. Well, not kidnaps him, but knocks him out, puts him in the cell, and tells him the whole story to try and redeem him about, like, Eastman and all that. You guys know the deal by now. But this time it's not Carol who finds out first. It's Rick. Because remember, I don't want to be repetitive, but the whole group is there. No one is gone. So, well, besides Shane. So Rick is the one to find out about Owen being captured. Now Morgan, after seeing Rick, tells him the whole story and says that people can change. And he should know that more than anybody. And that thanks to him, Morgan got out of his dark place and helped him along the way. And think about what he did for Rick whenever he saved him. It says that people can change. And he's trying to redeem this wolf leader here. And Rick says, while that might be true, Shane changed too, and look at what happened just now. Shane has proved that he is once again untrustworthy and is just... He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what to believe anymore. Now, while these two are arguing, Owen tries to go up and attack one of them to try and hold him at hostage point or do something. But with Rick here, that doesn't really pan out too well. Even though Shane, Laurie, and his kids are still alive, that fight or flight instinct with Rick still exists. So, whenever Owen does try to attack, Rick shuts that down and just one-shots him straight in the head with this hand cannon. Or python, whatever you want to call it. Morgan, of course, would not be too happy about this because, you know, he was trying to redeem the poor wolf and Rick just ended him in one shot. But ultimately, he has to admit, even with Rick, that Owen kind of did that to himself. So, yeah. Now, we then get to the part where the zombie horde becomes a problem. Because of the truck crashing into Alexandria and the horn blaring and the clock tower falling, the horde that was by the quarry line is now slowly making its way into Alexandria along with any other walkers or zombies in the area. So this is a big horde we're getting here, much bigger than the previous one, because it was never diverged. And with Deanna now just mourning the loss of Reg and not getting bitten because she's still alive, Rick at this point is finally taking leadership of the Alexandria community. Much more lightly so than his original counterpart. Not to say that Rick basically stole leadership or anything, but it's later in the story, and it's a different Rick and a bunch of different things. So now they gotta find a way to diverge this much, much bigger horde. Daryl and Merle decide to be the ones to do this. Why is it not Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha this time? Well, I believe the context for this, it just makes sense for Daryl and Merle to do this. And you'll understand more in just a second. Whenever Daryl and Merle decide to go ahead and diverge the horde, Ron steps up and says that he wants to come along too, because they need all the help they can get, and Ron believes that with his gun training and everything, that he'll be a good shot and a good help to Daryl and Merle. Now, of course, as you would expect, not only does Jesse protest against this, but Daryl too, because Well, Jesse, obviously, because she's his mom, and Daryl protests because he doesn't want to have a kid's death on his conscience, because that's just how I think Daryl would operate at this point in the story, not later on, because he definitely shows more compassion in the later seasons, obviously. But Merle then steps up and says that Ron's kind of right. With his gun training, he'll be a good shot and a good help to both of them. And they'll be on bikes, so it's not like they're in any imminent danger. It's not like they're going on foot, because that would just be suicide. But to be absolute sure that Ron is safe, they go into the Alexandria Armory and get the best handguns that they can scrounge together. And along with this, grab a buttload of ammo just to be absolute sure that they are safe. And then they get bikes and are ready to move on. Now, the plan goes as such. Daryl obviously goes out in front to alert them with the sound of the bike engine, and pretty much what he did before when he alerted the Horde. It's just under different circumstances. It's a bit later into the story. We're in, near the middle of Season 6 at this point. Daryl goes in front while Merle and Ron are behind, shooting whatever zombies they can, shooting up in the air, doing that stuff. Pretty much trying to be better distractions to get the Horde away from Alexandria. Now, they do this for a good amount of time. No zombies are being fought in Alexandria because the whole group has scrounged together in Alexandria to avoid fighting or anybody dying. So a lot less conflict. But once Daryl, Merle, and Ron get out far enough, and they're absolute sure that the zombies can't be a threat to the community, Ron makes his move. Because, if you guys couldn't already tell, this was a setup. Ron slowly moves his gun and aims it straight at Daryl. Because this is the perfect opportunity for Ron to get revenge for, Daryl killing Pete. Because the only reason why he wanted to go... This is pretty much like what he wanted with Rick, except it is much different. Merle, now fully paying attention to Ron at this point, with the zombies not being in any imminent, threat at this point, sees what Ron is doing and asks, "Why are you pointing that gun at Daryl?" Or he would say, "My brother," or something like that. Because he is very confused at this point. Ron looks straight at Merle and says that Daryl is responsible for his father's death, and he should know more than that because he was there. He saw Daryl kill his father, so he should understand. Merle, now knowing the truth of what's happening at this point, decides no way, and kicks Ron straight off the bike and causing Ron to collapse on the ground. This would be a very strong kick, and it would skin Ron up something fierce. And one of the walkers or zombies near them would slowly converge upon Ron and kill him. So, once again, Ron kind of did this to himself. Daryl, now turning around, and since the zombies aren't any threat at this point, like I said, sees what just happened and asks, "What the crap was that all about?" and everything else. And once Merle said that Ron tried to kill Daryl because of what happened with Pete, Daryl understands, but they're not so sure how Jesse and everybody else is going to take it, because they're still going to have to tell them. And they sadly go back to Alexandria to try and spread the news. Meanwhile, this is the part where Shane becomes relevant, straight near the end of the episode, like I said at the beginning. Now, Shane has been off on his own, fighting zombies, and just trying to get his head together after all of what happened. But he slowly comes to terms with realizing he's not alone, and meets up with Dwight, Sherry, and Tina, Dwight being the only one seeming aggressive towards him, and this is the point where the saviors come into play. But before Shane can even process what's going on with Sherry, Tina, and Dwight, a gun is raised to his back and tells him to lower his weapons and drop them to the ground. Who is this mysterious assailant? And what is going to happen with Shane at this point in the story? And how will Jessie take the death of her son in these circumstances? And that's where we're going to be leaving things for the moment. Hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and are enjoying What If Rick Spared Shane the remake as a whole. What do you think's going to happen with Shane into the possible entrance of the Savior arc? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and want to see more, and I will see you guys next time.